Hello everyone, I'm Monica from Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. I welcome you all to CCoE Cyber Startup Showcase Series session on building a unified cyber defense strategy. Attackers won't wait, so why should we? By Mr. Praveen Yeleswarapu. Praveen manages client partnerships at Blue Sapphire, the first and only unified cyber defense solution in the market today. He has over a decade of experience in consulting and brings together metrics and qualitative insight to deliver the best solution to every consumer need. He believes that unification across tools and tech is the only way to stay ahead of the ever-emerging threat landscape and strives to build a solution that helps business leaders think of InfoSec and cybersecurity ops as a revenue center. I now welcome Mr. Praveen to take over the session. Over to you, Mr. Praveen.
Hey, thank you so much, Monica. Pleasure connecting with you, and of course, it is amazing always talking on the podium of our CCoE Hyderabad. Good afternoon to everyone, and I hope we're good to go and start, or what do you want me to do it, Monica?
Yeah, you can start. We have some numbers and it's continuing to grow.
Perfect. Let me go ahead and share the screen. The goal is not to bore you with multiple slides. The audience, thank you so much for participating today. The goal is purely to speak about what kind of problems do we constantly observe within the industry from a cybersecurity perspective. What kind of solution should the organizations think of in terms of building a robust cyber defense stack? And more importantly, how do we structure the overall operations with qualitative metrics to keep way ahead or to stay way ahead of the attackers today, because they are much more connected and unified and not operating in silos, if I will. And probably that is only the reason why not many organizations are today breached left, right, and it is becoming really hard to be on the other side of the table. We'll talk more about what's happening today in the industry currently, where ideally we should stand in terms of having a robust cyber resilience platform or cyber resilience program within an organization, and how can we actually build that at ease, because I think it is a common perception in the industry that having a robust cyber resilience model for an organization from a security ops standpoint is pretty hard to achieve. It is definitely not rocket science. Let me go ahead and get into the presenters mode. Please let me know if you're able to view. Confirm if you see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. A little about ourselves as Blue Sapphire. Started in the year 2017. We built the industry first unified advanced cyber defense stack with complete automation in terms of rapid threat detection, response, and remediation. Our goal was to ensure we build in absolute visibility in terms of identifying anomalies or threats at multiple data levels at the same time, ensure that there is absolute automation in place on how we perform response and remediation, purely to minimize the complexity today we have within any entity that we usually walk in. And let's understand what it is, right? So I think this situation that you see on the screen is pretty common now. What we keep hearing across when we speak to peers within the industry is either the organization today is already breached, or it is just that they're not aware of it. And if you look at the pattern, right, so essentially there's not a single industry vertical or an entity which the attackers target in. It has actually become a huge business for the attackers community as well. And it doesn't matter if you are a large organization or a small SMB entity and so on and so forth. One of the patterns that we have realized is that no matter what kind of size and scale that the organization is today, Say, for example, we talk about some of the largest that you see on the screen over here. They had best of the tools and technologies deployed, and not that they didn't have enough workplace or workforce enabling the work structure. So they had best of the team managing these tools and technologies being deployed, and by far had the mature processes implemented. And any compliance that you speak of, I mean, I'm sure you walk in any large enterprise, um, there's no real reason why they are not compliant with any major compliance metrics of the industry. So having said that, irrespective of having the best of the tools, best of the people, mature processes, and also being compliant, is not helping the organizations to stay secure, if I will. And fundamentally, if that is the case, then there is something really incorrect that is being practiced in the industry. And let's understand what that is. So from a overall cybersecurity operations center standpoint, if an incident or a cyber incident is identified or is to be identified, it actually revolves around these four pillars that you see on the screen currently, which is detecting a cyber threat, analyzing a cyber threat, followed up with performing response and remediation, and of course, recovery being the infrastructure activity. But look at the challenge in a different perspective, right? So today the threat landscape is evolving, and as the threat landscape is evolving, identifying those threats have been super challenging. Not that we are not using proper machine learning functionalities, not that we are not looking at the TTPs or otherwise tools, techniques, and practices, or not that we are not using some of the best analytics that are available in the industry. It is just that how we are looking at the data points individually from multiple tools that are deployed within Security Operations Center. Each of these tools are operating in its own silo, ensuring that the analysts looking at these siloed data points are completely lost with all the confusion and all the complexity that is being building around in terms of analysis. What is so baffling is, irrespective of millions of investments that actually go in within these cyber security operations, detecting a cyber attack takes over 210 days globally as an average, which is pretty pathetic. And even if you get to know from an organization's perspective that you've been attacked, majority of times it is actually not your own tool or not own SOC which is telling the organization that you've been attacked. It is potentially someone in someone who is flipping around dark web identifies an organization's data, or potentially the attacker himself or herself posts on Twitter calling out that, hey, you've been reached by my attack, and that's pretty bad. And at the same time, analysts are just not able to comprehend comprehend the siloed data sets that are being generating out of these siloed tools. Now, what happens is, even if we know there is a ransomware happening within the environment, response is a huge pain. Imagine a pretty small organization with less than 100 machines spread across multiple locations in the same geography. Performing a response without any automation in place with, say, one or two IT technicians is an absolute nightmare. And let's not even talk about remediation. So this exact reason is ensuring that Security Operations Center, irrespective of millions of investments go in, there's just no outcome out of it. So essentially, there are completely siloed tools, ensuring people are siloed. There's just no automation in place in performing response and remediation. And I'm sure it becomes really hard for you to visualize what I'm trying to convey over here. But hang on, what I've done is I've built something pretty simple to put you into the shoes of Security Operations Center, where you get into the shoe of security analyst firsthand. Now imagine you are in a Security Operations Center constantly monitoring or trying to identify those threats. Now today, in any Security Operations Center that you walk in, the first layer in which the focus happens is the network, the organization's network, if I will. So essentially, there are so many tools around identifying cyber threats over network itself. And I'm sure you would have heard about proxies, firewalls, IDS, and IPS. And these functionalities are there in the industry for for a couple of decades, close to, if I will. And on top of that, you have the best of the breed new age technologies that are chiming in, which is like network traffic analysis and network behavior anomaly detection. But one thing that you should notice is each of these tools present an individual dashboard from a security analyst standpoint. Now, the complexity doesn't end here. Then the focus shifts on the endpoint, essentially the computer on which potentially you're working or your users are working, say desktops or laptops or servers. How do I identify malicious activities over there? Now, all of a sudden, you've got a bunch of tools to identify malicious activities on the host, say a humble antivirus, or much advanced functionality like an endpoint detection and response, which purely focuses upon what's happening at in memory, and let's identify those malicious and malicious activities that are taking place within memory execution perspective. But again, the problem still persists. Each of these functionalities present a separate dashboard from an analyst standpoint. And on top of that, there is data layer where you think of encryption devices, email gateways, and data leak prevention, followed up with advanced functionalities like cloud security. We all know majority of organizations today, purely because of COVID or any other perspective, are transforming their businesses onto cloud, which calls for cloud security. Then you've got security orchestration and automated response, sandboxing, and so on and so forth. Now imagine yourself in the shoes of security analysts, looking at over 15, 20 different dashboards to identify, oh, where is this malicious activity? Now, SIEM, which is Security Investigation and Event Management System, has simplified a little by generating alerts out of each of the functionality. But is it really enabling the analyst? Absolutely not, because the alerts that are triggering are purely out of correlation rules. And even if there is one alert that is triggered out of it, the analyst still has to go back into the respective functionality. Say, for example, an alert was triggered on through an EDR, which is endpoint detection and response, on an SIEM. The analyst has no other choice but to go back to an EDR dashboard and start triaging that activity then and there. Now, the challenge is the EDR doesn't talk to firewall logs, or EDR doesn't talk to firewall doesn't talk to sandbox. There's just no interconnection, there's just no integration. And to complicate this, there are over 2,000 vendors today in the market offering these pointed solutions as individual functionality. And then you've got over 280 plus professional certifications, which are enabling potential job seekers to be practitioners in the individual tool, but actually not cybersecurity domain. And that is concerning me a lot. Now, like I said, if you step into the shoes of cybersecurity analysts, just imagine the complexity. These tools throw gigabytes of data, terabytes of data. How much can an analyst consume? How quickly can they identify a potential threat? How quickly can they triage? With lots of physics, it becomes really, really complex. Now we speak about problems, we spoke about what the process challenge is. And what I may want to focus right now is purely to see what is Gartner talking about. I'm sure
Hello. Can't hear you, Praveen.
there's some technical error. Meanwhile, people can follow us on our social media channels. We'll be sharing our QR codes and links to our social media channels. Please do follow us on. Thank you for your patience, and we'll have our speaker join back in a moment. Find our QR codes and links to our social media handles on the screen.
Oh yeah, just to fill this break. If you guys have any questions, please put those in the chat box so that we can just we can ask Praveen to answer them after he finishes his session. We apologize for the delay. We'll just be back.
We have similar interesting sessions lined up in the coming week. To know more, do follow us on our social media channels and stay connected.
So yeah, to fill this break, I'll just talk a minute about our Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Just share my screen. So thank you for your patience. Yeah, can you see my screen? Monica, you can just check if you're seeing me.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So yeah, hi everybody, this is Arshit. I take care of marketing at the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. It's a joint initiative of Data Security Council of India and the Government of Telangana. So engage, innovate, scale is our motto, and we strive to achieve this. So this is our governing council team. So initially we have Rajendra Pawar, who's the chairman and co-founder of NIIT. Is a tech pioneer and a Padma Bhushan. Next, we have Jayesh Ranjan, who's the principal secretary, ITE and INC, Government of Telangana. He's been a backbone of our Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, and he always pushes us to excel in any programs we do. Next is Rama Devi Lanka, who is the director for emerging technologies, and she's an officer on special duty, ITE and C department. Next is Rama Vedashri, who's the CEO of Data Security Council of India. And then we have Narendra Nath Ji, who's the Joint Secretary, National Security Council Secretariat. And next we have Arvind Kumar, who's a scientist and senior director, Ministry of Electronics and IT. Next we have Subbarao Perappa, who's the managing director and India CTO for JP Morgan Chase & Co. Next we have Prakash Bodla, who's the executive director and center head, Carrier. Next we have Anil Nair, who's the global VP Network Security Portfolio, Cisco. And we have Rammohan Bomireddy, who's a serial entrepreneur and presently is the CEO and MD of Digital Trust Technologies. And finally, we have V. Rajanna, who's the Senior Vice President and Global Head, Technology Business Unit, TCS. Yeah, so this is our story. As I already told you, we're a joint initiative of DSCI and Government of Telangana. So our purpose is to create a conducive cybersecurity and privacy ecosystem and provide a secure and resilient cyberspace in digital economy to accelerate the cybersecurity and privacy momentum in India and in general and Telangana in particular. So cybersecurity market globally is huge, and it amounts to almost $200 billion. So we want to position Telangana as a global hub and to capture a share of the cybersecurity market. So these are the pillars of CCoE. So we have 5 pillars, which starts with cybersecurity industry, which consists of large enterprises, SMEs, and startups. We work with each one of them in different ways, and we try to push startups and to collaborate with large enterprises. We push for funding, and we help out the cybersecurity industry as a whole to grow in the state of Telangana. Next, we work with government, central and state government departments and law enforcement agencies to make them better and to create a better cybersecurity ecosystem. We work with academia and R&D centers, so to do research and and for hiring and training and development. We do a lot of faculty development programs also. Currently, we are running an IoT security project in association with Mahindra University. So where we are developing a guidebook and the best practices document, which will be up and running in the next few days, which will be available on our websites and our social media handles, which you can download and get yourself get new information about IoT security. So I think Praveen is back. He's just joining. So once he joins, he can take over. So next we have user groups like banking, pharma, finance, retail, FMCG, manufacturing, and defense. So they help us by providing us use cases which we push the use cases towards the cybersecurity industry, which which allows the companies to develop new solutions and develop new products. And finally, it is collaborations. We collaborate with local, national, international bodies, many incubators, accelerators, NGOs, and trade and investment divisions all around the country. So we believe that we alone cannot do huge amounts of work. So we collaborate with many people to have a bigger footprint, and we want to help as many people and companies as we can. So we always welcome other companies' help, other organizations and NGOs. Yeah, I'm going to stop here. Praveen is back.
Hey, I'm so sorry. My laptop broke abruptly, and so sorry about that. Let me go ahead and share the screen one more time.
Sure.
Please let me know if you're able to view the screen.
Yeah, we can. You can just keep it on full screen. You can stop.
Okay. Okay. So let me just brief around what we spoke. We spoke about siloed approach in terms of people, process, and technology, and we also simulated as to how the Security Operations Center is running today by getting into the shoes of a security analyst. And I think this part where we broke was me talking about Gartner's security operations maturity scale, what it is, and what we can take back from it and think of a solution to the problem. Now, Gartner has performed an extensive research and identified there are at least 5 different maturity levels an organization can desire of to have, or rather to build a robust cyber resilience program within the organization. But at the end of the day, it is always desired to be attaining stage 5 maturity. And if you look at this entire matrix, the focus has been on aspects not just around technology, but a bunch of other pointers which complete the overall security operations. And let me call that out. A, the tool sets that are required or otherwise technology, the people who are managing these technologies and the practices that are being built by people on top of the technologies that are deployed within the SOC, and the kind of intelligence around the global threats that are being constantly allowed to or constantly identified and being identified within the Security Operations Center at any given point of time. And the last thing is, of course, the metrics to study how well the overall program has been designed. And as we can see, stage 5 is the one that is highly desired, or it is recommended today from a practitioner's point of view, from our overall cybersecurity program, from a SOC standpoint is concerned within an organization. Because at the end of the day, any organization that you touch base upon, be it small, medium, or enterprise, or large enterprises, if I will, are under constant threat. And attacker is not just is no more waiting for you to scale your maturity from a security ops center from stage 1 to stage 5. What is needed today is how quickly can you transform your security operations model to stage 5 maturity. Now, let's give a quick perspective of what is the stage 5 maturity. Now, we spoke about tool sets required. Traditionally, the focus was always on basic tools from a cybersecurity wall perspective. It could be a firewall or a AV and so on and so forth. But that's not helping to the cause anymore because the attackers have gone smart. How do we identify these smart attackers? How do we stop sophisticated attacks? How do we stop some of the most targeted attacks that you constantly are observing across the globe? The immediate thought process should change in terms of, or the mindset shift should be more towards how do I understand the behavior of an attacker, and that's where all these functions come in to study the behavior of behavior to identify those malicious activities at multiple data levels. It starts with having an SIM, which is security investigation and event management. And again, it is not a simple SIM that you've been using for, say, half a decade or more. The thought process is how can you have a next generation SIM, which is more data lake centric, where you think of combining all the data points together in one single data lake and build value on top of it. Then you've got an endpoint detection and response, where the focus is to study what are those potential registry changes that are being made, kind of scheduled tasks being created, what kind of processes that are triggering, what kind of child processes that are triggering, what is the authentication mechanism used, are there any tools that are being used to bypass the authentication mechanism at an endpoint level? That's where the endpoint detection and response plays a vital picture. NTA, which is network traffic analysis and network behavior anomaly detections, focuses now to study the malicious activities that are happening over network. And this is, as practitioners have already understood after doing a lot of permutations and combinations, that having a visibility from an endpoint is no more sufficient, because the source of truth today is network, where we both are talking to each other. You're hearing me on this webinar because you have access to me over a network. So it is extremely important that we study what kind of anomalies are seen over the network, and NTA and BAD functionality allows you to identify those potential anomalous communications happening over the network, identify command and control, botnet, and so on and so forth. UEBA, otherwise user entity and behavior analytics, focuses purely to again see what kind of anomalous activities a user is triggering knowingly or unknowingly. Today, majority of organizations are extremely cautious that potentially their users are involved in a malicious activity knowingly or unknowingly, which should be a serious concern for an organization. And UEBA allows organizations to track user behavior, what essentially, just in simple terms, to understand where is he logging from, what is he doing, what kind of sites that they are accessing. That's the simple behavior. To the complex behaviors in terms of what applications this user launches, what is that application doing, what kind of in-memory executions is this application trying to achieve, and so on and so forth. From an entity perspective, it ties down both the stories together to give you a better outcome out of it. So UEBA plays a humongous role in identifying malicious activities. Followed up with deception and, of course, orchestration, which is combining all these functions together. And we spoke about siloed approach. The thought of orchestration is how to kill this siloed approach and bring all these functionalities together, because the data points that are generated out of each of the tool is pretty complex in nature, and majority of times the data volume is so high that from an it is humanly not possible for you to do the triaging quickly. So the orchestration functionality enables for faster triaging out of all these functionalities and put the absolute insight in front of people, enabling threat hunting teams, enabling analyst community to quickly take respective actions if necessary, and also give absolute analysis or perform absolute analysis and take respective calls. Followed up with building of practices, and of course metrics will not focus much upon them. Now, this is what Gartner proposes, and this is where theoretically everyone should be to ensure they have a robust cyber resilience program in the organization. How do we solve this? What do we really bring in terms of building such kind of framework? Is purely to understand that the silver bullet to it is unify your existing security operations, or when you intend to architect and build your security operations center ground up, think about how can I unify each and every activity within this org, be it from a tool perspective, people, process, or the overall mindset point of view as well, because mindset today plays a huge role in unifying tools, people, and process. Traditionally, it was always mindset which ensured that security functions, security as a service or a function has always been kept siloed, ensuring that there is just no value out of security ops today. Now, how do we think of unification, and how do we solve this larger problem by thinking of a framework is where my next 15 minutes will be focused upon. So what are those 4 things that enable you to build a unified cybersecurity ops framework? Is the first and foremost thing is to have an effective data collection mechanism and data management mechanism, followed up with absolute effectiveness in terms of identifying advanced threats quickly. And then you have an organized practice, which is consuming these data points by suppressing the noise and purely the actionable intelligence, allowing the practitioners to take responsive actions using a collaborative function across the organization, not just from a security operations perspective, but from overall infrastructure team, or it could be with the business units as well. Today, the major problems security operations team run into is a convincing network team to quickly perform response and remediation actions, or also if at all they if at all security operations team wants to introduce a new function to study a specific behavior, network team is not so happy about that, because there is every chance that it may break things up, and eventually people start turning towards network team and start blaming them. So these are certain on-field challenges security teams go into. So when you think of building something robust and unique, think of how you do not disturb the harmony within the teams, and at the same time you have a viable approach in terms of what's happening within the overall ecosystem, and take perfect response and remediation calls as well without major dependencies across. Now, how do we do that? Let's focus upon smart data collection. Now, today in the world where we've started, or rather a lot of organizations have already moved towards cloud, and there is just so much of technology transformation happening. Majority of digitization we've seen in last 3 to 4 years, thanks to COVID and so on and so forth. There is enough data everywhere. Where we used to see manual stuff has also turned digital, ensuring that our threat landscape has only grown larger and has evolved and is evolving constantly. What helps is what helps is absolute data visibility that you have in terms of identifying malicious activities. Let's start with the cloud itself. Today, you have a lot of functions which are offered anything as a service, like say, for example, security tools, or it could be network specific tools, or it could be applications itself that are posted directly and are being provided as service, right? Anything security, software as a service, anything that is as a service should be brought into overall security operations radar. And let's talk about how that needs to be done as we progress further. Now, the data doesn't stop there. Then you've got the network activity. And we spoke about this just a while back, how important it is to build an overall visibility in terms of network activity. So it's imperative that you think of how you can bring in the network traffic data into a single unified data stack. And we'll speak about that, as I said, much later. Followed up with the entire infrastructure around compute devices, be it laptops or desktops or thin clients, virtual machines, workloads hosted over cloud, and so on and so forth. All these data points are to be brought into a single data lake, first of all, to have one place where you can find all the logs in one single point of view. And that's where big data helps you a lot. Now, once you've got all the data points together, build a function which harnesses the data that you're collecting today, and on top of running machine learning algorithms, identified multiple suspicious or anomalous activities happening and triaging them as well. And as I said, machine learning is the key today. And of course, how ML can be used in multiple functions, in terms of detecting malicious activities over network by network traffic analysis and network behavior anomaly detection as a function deployed, user entity and behavior analytics, sandboxing, otherwise behavior analysis, endpoint detection and response. Consumption of threat intel is extremely important today, because, and not just from one source, right? So it's important that you constantly feed your security operations center with multiple TI sources, both commercial and open source functions, enabling faster identification of noise and suppressing them then and there itself. And of course, threat hunting. Today, as I said, threat intel is visible, is available big time in the market, and at the same time, there is this closed ecosystem where organizations like CERT add a lot of value in sharing the intelligence in terms of a potential attack that has happened somewhere within the peer network. You can use those indicators of compromises or artifacts proactively and run scans in terms of threat hunt within the organization, within your own security, within your own entity, and see if an IOC match is observed. And this is absolutely practical to be much more proactive, a step ahead of an attacker to potentially identify a malicious activity which is just initiated, and you can cut that off then and there itself. Because you've got a data lake model, it's imperative that you build absolute analytics which are more predictive in nature. Focus more on how do you secure an endpoint which doesn't have potential internet connectivity. And the reason I'm calling that out is, think of Murphy's Law, and we know anything that is being built is bound to fail at any given point of time. We don't know it is when. And because of work from home culture, you get to see the users are operating out of multiple locations. At times they don't have internet access, which means that consuming logs from these hosts has become a huge challenge. And unless you have logs, you cannot detect a malicious activity. And just imagine a user potentially is not connected to the internet, or potentially a local peer-to-peer network, and they and the machine is being infected with a ransomware or malicious activity, and it starts flowing within the network. So your focus should be, how can I secure the host even when they are not connected to the internet? And that's where endpoint protection plays a huge role. All these functions constantly enabled by machine learning algorithms running on top of the data that is collected out of multiple sources as part of smart data collection activity should enable one single pane of glass view, which enables the practitioner team to have the entire noise cut down and simplifies the triage once an attack is identified using the functionalities that we just spoke of, and quickly take corrective actions in terms of response and remediation. Now, what it does is, because of the unification of the entire function, there is absolute faster detection. You can think of quick response, and we spoke about Gartner stage 5 maturity. And as you see, all the functions over here, you will be beyond Gartner stage 5 maturity, and that is something that is desired today. It's imperative that you stay a step ahead of an attacker. It enables, because it's a single pane of glass view, it enables you to have an efficient metrics and holistic awareness and visibility. Now, this is exactly what is desired today from a security operations center. Now, how is Blue Sapphire enabling our partners and customers to do it? Is we offer the entire stack that I'm displaying right now on the screen, which is all the functions that you see over the screen, on a single unified platform built completely ground up. So there's no third-party platform that we are using currently. All the functions, starting with network traffic analysis, behavior anomaly detection, user entity behavior analytics, and sandboxing, endpoint detection and response, consumption of threat intel, threat hunting, and analytics, are completely built in-house and are completely unified, enabling the analyst to perform faster triage. And our response and remediation is completely agentless, enabling the organization to take swift actions. We spoke about the detection metrics just a while back. It takes over 210 days to identify a cyber threat today, and I'm talking about advanced cyber threats. Today with Blue Sapphire, a lot of our customers have brought down that timeline from 210 days global average to less than 2 minutes of time in terms of identifying some of the most sophisticated threats, even before the last stage, that is ransomware, happens. And more importantly, we have enabled our customers and partners to reduce the mean time to response by over 300% by the automation functionality that we bring in-house within the platform as well. The functionality is completely offered as SaaS or can be deployed on-premise as well. Some of the best insights that you should hear about as Blue Sapphire is, our mean time to detect is less than 2 minutes. Mean time to response is less than a couple of seconds. And more importantly, you attain stage 5 maturity as far as Gartner's framework is concerned. And because it enables swift triage, there is enough data set that is available from a report standpoint that you can present to the respective community within the organization, and give them the absolute insight in terms of how you identified an attack and how did you respond and remediate. That itself is a challenge today in the industry. I will take a pause over here, Harshit, and happy to take any questions from here on.
Okay, so yeah, please. So if you have any questions for Praveen, he'll be happy to answer. So you can just put it in the chat box. You can get your queries cleared, or if you have any doubts or the trends and latest news in the industry, of if you want to get clarity on anything, please ask any questions you have. Okay. Praveen will just wait for a minute for any questions and then we can go ahead. Please do use this opportunity to ask any questions to the industry expert. Yeah, thank you. Monica can conclude the session. I think Praveen is done with this session.
Okay. So with this, our today's session has come to an end. On this note, I would like to thank our participants and Mr. Praveen for taking the time of your busy schedules and joining with us today. Thank you and have a good evening.